Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Sir Kevin Says. Today is episode number 24. As many of you know, it's available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I know many have inquired about when the new episodes would be available just for audio, and I'm excited to let everybody know that that will be updated by next Friday. Make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, rate it 5 stars. If you prefer to listen to it on Spotify, you can also check it out there. All you have to do is search Sir Kevin Says and make sure to hit that follow button. On to today's episode. Today we feature Rene Camacho, who's an awesome bass player. He plays acoustic and electric bass. He's also a vocalist, originally from Tucson, Arizona. He now lives in Los Angeles, and while trombone was his first instrument, he always had an affinity for the bass, and in his college years, Rene made the switch. Rene received a bachelor's degree in jazz studies and composition from the University of Arizona. Rene began working with many Latin artists shortly after moving to LA, and most notably, a 5-year stint with the Queen of Salsa, Celia Cruz, and a brief time with the King of Mambo, Tito Puente. Artists that he has worked with include Sergio Mendes, Ry Cooder, Michael Bublé, Oscar Castro Neves, Michael McDonald, Poncho Sanchez, Típica 73, Robin Ford, Angelique Kidjo, Jose Alberto El Canario, Raúl Malo, The Mavericks, Ricky Lee Jones, Juan Gabriel, The Fifth Dimension, The Pointer Sisters, Ron Blake, Francisco Torres, Oscar Hernandez, Canadian pianist Carol Welsman, Arnold McCuller, the Disney Channel, and guitarist Dean Brown. Rene continues to actively record with artists from all over the musical world and currently performs with Draco Rosa, Kevin Eubanks, War, and many others. The first time I got to see Rene play was when he was performing with Poncho Sanchez at the Hollywood and Highland Summer Concert Series, which was a really cool experience. In the podcast, we discuss his move from Tucson, Arizona to LA, what value means to him, and a host of other things. So without further ado, which, by the way, might be the coined phrase I'm going to keep from now on, especially because I'm trying to think of one new phrase per week, and I can never seem to figure it out. Episode 24. Welcome to Sir Kevin Says. This is episode number 24. Today we are featuring Rene Camacho, bass player, vocalist, educator, and entrepreneur.
Wow. There you go.
Rene, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming here, man. I know it's a little bit of a drive, but I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem.
How's everything going?
Things are going well. Considering what the time we're living in right now. But I would say everything is okay.
Good.
Not much music right now in terms of traveling and live music and things like that. But other than that, I'm healthy, I'm safe.
That's amazing.
And, always practicing.
Yeah,
so
that's good, man. Good. What have you been up to since the whole pandemic started? I know back in March, everything kind of shut down musically, for the gig economy. But what have you been doing just to kind of keep yourself preoccupied? Aside from practicing, I guess.
Sure. I've done a few live streams. With duets, with a couple of trios and quartets and things like that. Just different things that I've been asked to do, because I had first thought about possibly doing something like that. And then when I started receiving the calls to engage in that, I was like, oh man, okay, cool. Same wavelength.
Yeah.
So little by little doing things like that, also recording from home. Which is really good.
Yeah. You have a studio at home?
I have a small studio, but just enough to record bass, mainly because that's all I really do. So if I record electric direct, and if I need to do like some heavy acoustic playing and recording, then I'll call Jimmy Brantley. Like, man, help, man! Hook me up with your studio.
Is he still out in Burbank area now? Or
he moved out towards Sherman Oaks now.
Sherman Oaks, okay.
Yeah, but he still has a studio in that area.
Nice, that's cool, man. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing, man. Where you're from? I know you're not originally from LA.
Born and raised in Tucson, Arizona.
Tell us a little bit about that, man.
Sure thing. I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. I'm third generation Arizonan. My family comes from Sonora, Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And I was going to school, from elementary all the way through college. I made it to the University of Arizona.
Yeah.
I have a degree from them. And the odd thing was that I started playing music early on because a lot of my cousins were musicians. My dad was a trumpet player too.
Nice.
But I started playing music when I was 5, and at 7 years old, I decided to play trombone.
Wow.
Yeah, and the thing is that listening to music all the time with my cousins and my dad, we would always listen to Willie Colon.
Oh,
and
man.
the one thing that always hit me was listening to La Murga and the beginning of that song. I was like, I want to learn that instrument. So at 7 years old, I started trying to play the trombone.
Yeah.
And of course, at that age, you can already hear it. It sounds like one of those things that they play at the soccer games. Just horrible sound. But I was always trying to play that song, and I would play it over and over and over, and eventually, moved on to other songs and tried other instruments. Actually, at 5 years old, I was playing like drums and percussion because that's what my cousins were doing.
Yeah.
So I was mimicking them.
That's cool.
And I tried the keyboard, I tried the guitar, and certain things like that. But eventually, I gravitated toward the trombone, and that actually got me through college.
Wow.
So it got me out of the whole neighborhood activity.
Yep.
And that along with a little bit of sports. I played sports throughout my time in school. But then my senior year in high school, I really started trying to get serious about music.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did, because my transition from high school to college was definitely easier than if I wouldn't have taken it seriously at that time.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I graduated from the University of Arizona. Decided to try different places. I was looking at Miami to do some postgraduate work.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't really pan out as well because Hurricane Andrew hit, and I was like, I'm not really into that type of vibe right now, So I left there, and then I joined a group. This singer in Tucson who would go back and forth between Tucson and San Antonio.
Okay.
His name is Adalberto Gallegos.
Okay.
And a phenomenal singer. And so I joined his group, and so that took me to Texas for a little while.
Yeah.
Playing a lot of the Tex-Mex concerts and things like that.
Got it.
And then eventually in 95, I started thinking about making a bigger move. And that was originally to New York.
Mm.
And so I had, everything lined up. And my eventual roommate here in LA, who was also a bass player, he convinced me, you know a lot more people in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You only know a few people in New York. Because oddly enough, the reason why I wanted to go to New York was Sonny Bravo from Tito Puente's band kept harping on me. He's like, when are you going to move? When are you going to move? And so I thought, okay, 95, that's my time.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. And so my eventual roommate told me, you only know a few people over there. You know a lot more people here.
Mm.
Why don't you try LA for 6 months? And if it doesn't pan out for you, then make the move to New York.
Yeah.
So eventually I figured, all right, let me just do that. I'll try it out. And I'm here still.
Nice.
24 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And since then, you've done work with Tito Puente. You did work with Celia Cruz. You call it a stint, but it's pretty big to play with the Queen of Salsa. So how was that time, man?
That was phenomenal. I never really realized that I would be able to actually perform with her. And I was able to perform with her the last 5 years of her life.
Wow.
And that was just incredible. Her as a person she was like the band's grandmother. She took care of all of us. She nurtured us. Not only musically but personally. And she was really an amazing woman. And when you talk about her musicality and her singing ability and things, she was incredible.
Yes.
When you hear all the old stuff, like as far back as Sonora Matancera and
exactly.
things like that, it's just like, wow, her career has just, blossomed into something really amazing.
Yes.
And I was able to do the Latin Grammys with her and things like that.
I saw that. That's right.
That was
right. Richie Ugahate was playing on that one, right?
Richie was playing too. I think Kevin Ricard was on that as well.
Who was on drums?
Wilfredo Reyes.
There we go.
Wilfredo Reyes,
yeah.
That's right, cool, who's actually the drummer with Chicago now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and you're doing stuff with War as of late?
Yes, actually, I have been with War now it'll be 6 years in September.
Man.
So it's been a really cool ride with those guys, definitely. And I grew up listening to their music.
Yeah.
And I used to go every year to the Greek, when they do that Saturday of Memorial Weekend every year. And so we used to go to those shows all the time. And I mean, I've known some of those guys in the band for years, you know, and so eventually I was able to sub for Pancho Tomaselli, who was the bass player at the time. And he was getting busy with some other projects that he had. So little by little, the transformation was where he went ahead and started doing more of those projects. And I came in and started doing more of the shows with War. Yeah. And just kind of, you know, ended up being the full-time guy.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's been great, man.
I've seen you've also worked with Kevin Eubanks. I mean, I used to watch The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. He was there for what, 20?
He was there 18 years.
18 years.
18 years.
I remember him mentioning something about, like, you know, once he stopped doing The Tonight Show, he was going to work on an album.
Right.
You know?
Well, you know, we've actually done 3 records as a quartet. Actually, 3 records as a quartet. And he's done a couple more with other artists, you know, like duets and things like that. But yeah, that's been incredible. I think my first year with him was 2007.
Wow,
if I'm not mistaken. And it's been an incredible ride with him too. Yeah. You know, the music is just, it's the hardest music I've ever had to play.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's, if you listen to it and you're watching, it's probably not as hard to listen to in terms of like, okay, well, I see what they're doing, you know, for musicians, I should say. Okay. Not for the general audience, you know. For the general audience, they're like, wow, I don't understand how you guys do this and go from here, you know, and transition to this. Yeah. But this was a real learning experience for me because I'd never been in that type of musical situation before where the leader of the band really doesn't call off songs to us, kind of the Miles Davis vibe, where there's not much speaking at all. Yeah. You know, and it's all listening. Got it. You know, like he would start off a song and when I was first in the band, I'd look at Smitty, the drummer, you know, Marvin Smitty.
Marvin Smitty.
Yeah, and he'd be like, hold on, you'll hear it. And sure enough, there'd be like maybe 2 notes of a melody. It's like, oh, okay, that's the song. And boom, we just started to a song. Wow. You know, and just, it really made me grow a great deal, you know, listening wise. And I always used to listen to music like in a certain way, in a specific way. Right. You know, throughout college, sometimes in high school too, a lot of musician friends would get together with me and we would just sit in a room like this and just listen to music. And then, you know, we would analyze it, you know, and that's kind of what it was playing or is playing in live situations with Kevin. Yeah. It's like you're constantly analyzing. You're analyzing what the sax player is doing. You're analyzing what the drummer is doing. You're analyzing what Kevin's doing. Sometimes there's instances where it's just so intense and all of a sudden Smitty will drop out. Boom. And it's like, oh, wow. Oh, man. Okay, well, this is a different vibe, you know, and you just make a different style. You know, you just create in the moment, you know. That's cool. That is really cool because for all the bands that I had played with before, it's a very structured sense of music. You know?
Yeah, there's charts and you know, arrangements already you have to follow, you know,
exactly. What they've already done. And with Kevin, there's no charts. There's no music written down. Yeah. It's all by memory. And, you know, when we do get together, we rarely rehearse. Wow. So when we do get together, it's like sound check. We're going through the songs and we're all trying to remember, oh man, okay, how did this section go? Oh man, okay, well, nobody remembers this, so let's just do this, you know? And it's a really interesting way to approach music. And I'm so happy that I have had the chance to do that because, like I say, you know, there's so much structure in the other types of bands that I play in that I would never have had the chance to do that style of music, you know, in terms of thinking, approach, you know.
Yeah, in that way.
Right.
That's cool, man.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what was your first gig that really put things in perspective? It was like, oh man, I'm doing music at the highest level I can do that. What was that gig? What was that experience like?
So when I first moved here, I moved in September of '96. And by October, I had already received calls from the Banda brothers, from Tony and Ramon, who were really instrumental in helping me start my music career in LA. You know, those guys really set me up. Poncho did too, you know. but I received calls from the Banner brothers, and the first call that I received was from Ramon, and I'm like, hello, and he says, yo, I'm like, who's this? It's Monzi, man. Oh, hey, what's up, Monzi? You're gonna get a call in about 5 minutes, man, from Francisco Ababella. All right, okay, cool. Later. What? What just happened? So sure enough, Francisco Ababella calls, and he asked, my availability. I'm like, yeah, I think I can make something. It's like I had nothing.
Wow,
so it's like, all right,
man.
cool. And so that was my first, instance in Los Angeles, which, interestingly enough, was my first gig in LA.
Yeah.
And just showing up and getting a chance to play with Francisco Ababella, who is a phenomenal artist, in his own right, but has also played with some of the most incredible artists as well, and just thinking about all that as we're playing, it's like, man, I'm playing with Francisco. There he is, and
wow.
And all the history that I knew at that time was coming back. It's like, wow, okay, so then I have reached another level.
Yeah,
and that's not to say that the musicians that I had played with before were not at the same level. It was just a different situation,
of course,
altogether.
Of course,
and there was definitely more availability in terms of playing all types of gigs here, not just being pigeonholed into one style of music.
Exactly.
Because when I first came here, like I said, I've started with Francisco, and then my roommate was a bass player on the R&B side. His name is Giovanni Collier, and he plays now with Bruce Hornsby. He's been with Bruce Hornsby for about 26 years.
Wow.
But at the time, he was playing with Gladys Knight and the Pips. He was also playing with the Pointer Sisters, with the Fifth Dimension. And so he was hooking me up with some R&B gigs, And the funny thing was that none of the people in the Latin scene knew that I played R&B music, and vice versa. None of the R&B guys had any idea that I played Latin music. Yeah. So it was kind of a funny scene for me,
Yeah.
And eventually, obviously, just because musicians play so many different things.
Exactly.
Here, everybody kind of found out. It's like, oh man, you do this, you do that. And that's the one thing that before I moved here, I was always worried about being prepared to play all styles of music, because I always wanted to. As a kid, I listened to all styles of music. There was always music in the house. My mom was early on, she was a manager at a record store. And so there was music at the house. My dad, like I said, was a trumpet player also. So obviously there was always music that he would play too. And then going to parties and stuff with my family, there was never once that there wasn't any music. So there was always music around. And I really realized later on that I would wake up with music in my room and go to sleep with music too. I would listen to a little clock radio or whatever, and it was just always part of my life.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so ever since then, it's still the same to this day, Yeah. So it's been a pretty amazing transformation through all of the childhood stuff,
of course,
and keeping it going. And I would listen to all styles of music back when I was a kid. I would listen to Miles Davis, John Coltrane, a lot of different jazz stuff. Then I'd put on like some Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and then I would put on like Santana. I'd put on Mariachi Vargas. It just ran the gamut, And I always wanted to be knowledgeable of what was going on in each style of music. And that still happens to this day.
Yeah.
I still try and listen to as many styles of music as possible, just so I can hear, something that I can learn from. I've been listening to a lot more old school type stuff in terms of like R&B, a lot of, like the Philly sound.
Got it.
And I've always liked the arrangements and things that came out of that music.
Yeah.
Stylistics, back like from Jersey, the Escorts, things like that. That's, a lot of people think it's oldies and things like that. And it is, and I love that style of music. But revisiting, like, everything that was involved in that music, it was pretty incredible. Even the old Motown stuff.
Yes.
When you hear the arrangements that were happening back in the day, it's like the instrumentation involved. You hear a lot of French horns, you hear a lot of strings, obviously, but you hear like English horn, you hear oboe, bassoon. It's like, man, these guys were incorporating such unique instruments to that style of music, and the general public really doesn't They don't listen for that. They like the tune, they like the lyrics, and oh, that's a great song. But yes, it is a great song. Listen to the arrangement.
Yeah.
Listen to what they were doing. And so I've kind of gone back to that era, to really listen to things that were happening arrangement wise. Nowadays, like the newer music, I'll listen to as much as I can on the radio and just try and pick things that I think are interesting. And obviously nowadays, the harmony is not as important as the rhythm, because everybody is making beats and they come off the beat thing, which is cool because beats have always been important, but musically speaking, I don't gravitate so much to that, because I want to hear the harmony that's involved. I want to hear a bridge in a song, which is rarely happening nowadays,
right.
But,
especially in pop music.
Right, exactly. Yeah, pop music is what it is now. It's really gone to such a simplistic style.
Exactly.
And there are pluses, from that, but there's a lot of things that are taken away that I wish would still be in popular music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of, if I listen to radio, it's usually like an old school station, or it's usually like 70s, 80s, sometimes 60s, styles of radio. If I'm listening to music at home, I tend to gravitate toward the old jazz, old Latin music.
Yeah.
I still listen to a lot of the old Tito Puente from the 40s.
Wow.
Yeah. And just to hear the grooves, hear the bass lines and things,
Somebody else told me this, that Tito Puente would say about salsa music, that he didn't like that term.
Right. The term salsa is just a general blanket for all the grooves, all the rhythms that are happening. Like you have mambo, you have cha-cha, danzón, guaracha, and so on, And so back in the day, before the term was coined, you would say that, okay, we're going to play a mambo now, we're going to play a cha-cha-cha, and things like that. And nowadays, the newer bands just say, okay, we're going to play some salsa for you. And it could be anything. It's just a blanket term to cover all the different styles of music. And so, Tito was a real hardcore guy about that. His opinion was, no, you need to identify each rhythm for what it is, And I don't remember the actual story. I know there was one story about Izzy Sanabria coming up with that term. He's a guy in New York who used to do, he was a writer. And he came up with that term to give to Larry Harlow for his record, Salsa, and then some people say that's where the phrase was coined. But I'm not really sure the exact story about it.
Yeah.
There's guys out there that do. But that was something that Tito Puente really wasn't too fond of.
Yeah. I guess we've known each other longer than we thought.
Right.
It's been about 10 years because I used to go and see you play at Hollywood and Hollywood with Poncho. And I saw Alberto there. I saw you. I think George Ortiz used to play.
Georgie. Georgie used to play there. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Mm-hmm. Humility is a very important characteristic, I would say, especially for musicians. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree. You may know a lot about music. You may have really honed in your craft, but you don't know everything, and you never will. You'll learn from anybody. Doesn't matter who it is. Yeah. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, you'll learn not to do that again. Or you'll learn not to do what they just did, or the good stuff. Oh man, I don't know that. I got to figure that out. And that's I think a life lesson too. It's not so much just involved in the music thing. As a musician, you really have to take control of everything, and that is also the music itself. You have to be really humble with what you're doing. And you never know who is going to come up and talk to you. If you don't know them, that person could be the most phenomenal musician ever, and you really have to take either the criticism they gave you, or the accolades that they gave you. And you just have to really understand, and take it in. And sometimes I don't see that happening with the younger artists. And I can understand that you do get into a situation where you're thinking, okay, well, I know a pretty good amount of what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm the cat, but a lot of times, there's always going to be somebody that you have no idea who that person is, and may not come from LA, may not come from New York, but maybe somewhere, in New Mexico or Colorado or something like that. Is like, wow, where'd this guy come from? This guy's amazing, and you just kind of have to have that vibe where keep an open mind and understand, that yeah, you're pretty solid with your thing, but you still have to keep it low key and keep it humble and understand and learn from different people. You can't have that vibe all the time. And I've run across it quite a few times, and at that point you just stay quiet and just see what they have to offer,
yeah.
And then you just make your decision afterwards, like, okay, yeah, that guy, yeah, I'm not gonna
exactly work with him again or kind of keep my distance.
Right, exactly. So it's hard for the general musician to be able to navigate through that, because we as independent contractors, so to speak, we don't have somebody next to us saying, okay, you know what, don't listen to that, or don't go that route, go this route, So you just have to kind of learn it on your own and decide what route you're going to take musically, life wise, and on all of the above.
Yeah. Where do you see the music industry going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of hate for the industry or anything like that, but I do see it going downward very fast. Record companies, man, are just, obviously they're flailing. They're trying, flailing and failing. They're trying to figure out a way to stay afloat, and in turn, they're really hurting the artist, the person that is making them the money.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of artists come and they're at the top of their artist game, not necessarily musically, but they're like the it thing at that point, and then all of a sudden, bam, they are gone. It's like, well, what happened? I mean, these guys were big, or she was big, or whatever, and all of a sudden they're not even on the map anymore. But that's the record company manipulating the artist's career, and they manipulate it by money, by lifestyle, like a lot of the rappers, a lot of the, like in the Latin scene, the reggaeton guys, there's big artists, and there are people that have gotten, their careers have exploded, but the record companies have signed a contract with them where they give them a house, they give them a car, they give them all of the promotion necessary to have that huge name, and yet they're only paying the artist maybe $1,000 a week or something like that, and everything that they make from sales of their music, their face, all of that goes straight to the record company.
Because they own them. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what the contract states. So that's a really bad thing, I think, that the industry is doing to the artists, because what's going to happen eventually is that artists are going to realize, man, well, we can't be doing this. It's great to have all the fame and all that type of thing, but where's our art going to go, and where's our music going to go, after the fact?
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, we were the ones that created it, but we're not going to be recognized for that because the record companies have taken all that away from us.
Yeah.
That's my feeling in the pop sense. In the sense of all other music, it is what it is right now, because everything is always has always been trending downward. Like in the jazz scene, there's always phenomenal musicians coming, out at all times, because, man, the younger generation in jazz has really elevated the technical aspect of the music to places where you haven't heard since like bebop.
Yeah.
You know, but some of these other cats that are coming out now, it's like, man, they're taking bebop to another area,
Yeah.
and it's phenomenal. You know, but the availability of venues for them to play is shrinking. The availability of record labels for jazz is shrinking. You know, so that's a really bad state for that side of the business for jazz. You know, and just radio in general just seems to be a whole different thing than from when we were growing up. You know, you would be able to listen to all styles of music just going down the radio dial. You know, and I don't know if it's because there's a lot of streaming. I think that streaming is beneficial because if a basic listener, non-musician maybe, wants to listen to a style or wants to listen to their artist specifically, they can do that, you know, and they don't have to mess with a CD. They don't have to mess with an LP. What?
Yeah.
What's that?
Cassette.
You know, cassette, 8-track, or anything like that. So I guess that's okay, but that also is hurting the musician because they don't pay the musician royalties that they should be paying.
Right.
You know, and I mean it's a loaded question because there's so much involved in the negative side.
Exactly.
You know, so I don't see it trending upward at all. It's trending downward. When you see Catalina Bar and Grill here, you know, one of the biggest jazz venues on the West Coast, if not the country, you know, they're a good circuit club where a lot of major jazz acts go, and they're hurting right now. They put up a GoFundMe, you know, and they've got like, you know, Chick Corea as a spokesperson trying to promote, you know, the GoFundMe and things like that, and it's just those types of businesses, the venues are not getting help, you know, from any type of government fund, you know. And I just read also there's another venue in Washington, D.C., Blues Alley. And we play there every year with Kevin. And they're about to go under too because they haven't had any help. And they've been closed since March too, you know, and their rent is due. And they're in Georgetown. So just like Catalina Bar and Grill being in Hollywood, those are the biggest spots for high rent, you know, for a space like that. So it's really a drag to see, you know, and there have been various venues in Los Angeles too that have closed before the pandemic, during the pandemic, they won't reopen again, you know, and that's really a depressing thing to see, being a musician who, you know, really wants and sometimes needs to play, you know, out live and things like that, you know, and I think basically every musician around the world is going through that because it is a worldwide situation, and you know, the venues worldwide are closing, just like here in the States. Mm-hmm. So once we do get out of this whole pandemic situation, it will be interesting to see who's left standing. You know, in terms of the venues, in terms of the festivals, in terms of anything live. You know, and here in the States, if Live Nation doesn't gobble everything up, you know, in terms of live events, then we'll see who else is able to create a situation for musicians to play live. You know?
Can you talk about the differences when it comes to recording an album and, let's say, performing live?
Sure. Well, definitely preparation is probably the most important part of either situation, you know. If you're going to play live, then you need to rehearse the band. You want to have a show, some type of a show. No matter what style of music, you want to keep the audience engaged, even if it's jazz. And the show portion may not be like, you know, choreography and things like that. But just breaks within the music or, you know, breaks between songs and, you know, a little bit of engagement with the audience. You got to know what you're going to say, things like that.
Exactly.
You know? Just to keep it light sometimes, you know, because, if you're a jazz event, a lot of times the music takes a lot of listening, you know, and that takes a lot of energy out of people. I remember when I was younger, when I was just into college, I remember going to see the Chick Corea Electric Band.
Oh, man.
You know, and I saw them maybe 4 times live, and it was phenomenal, but it was so exhausting to hear it. because everybody played the melody and everybody had amazing chops. And I was like, oh man, there's all this information bombarding me, for 2 hours. It's like, you just sit there afterwards like, wow, man, what happened? I mean, as phenomenal as it was, it was just like
so much information.
So much information, So, as an artist, you want to keep that in mind, especially nowadays, because my opinion is with technology, a lot of people have a shorter attention span, and things are more visual and not as audible anymore, so you have to prepare with all that in mind for a live situation, in terms of recording, we definitely have to prepare the music. But nowadays, the interesting thing is that you don't, when you go into a studio, you don't have the mindset of like, okay, it's going to be first take, second take, and that's it. I mean, you kind of do. But the thing is, with technology now, you don't have to be 100%. It's like, okay, let me punch this spot in. Or, oh, no, just nudge it over a little bit. Or, oh, you can use auto-tune and it'll sound great.
Right.
Back in the day when it was 2-inch tape, it's like you had to perform it. You had to play, you had to do your thing.
Yeah.
And so the preparation for recording, in my mind, is not as
what it used to be.
It's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
Right. And in terms of preparation for everything else, all the other elements, I think it's kind of the same for both situations, Personally, you definitely have to have your all your stuff together, on your instrument, make sure that, that everything else is cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can be challenging at times, but if you have an outlook as to how you want to do things, then I think it'll eventually work to your favor to just plan, pre-plan.
Yeah.
And that's whether you're in a band situation, an individual situation, either way.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that happens to every musician is they reach the highest peak. They also reach the lowest peak.
Yeah.
How do you go about navigating through both scenarios where, you're constantly working, you're gone for months at a time, and then there comes that slow period where you're not doing much, you're at home, you're chilling. How do you navigate through those two emotions?
Interesting question, because I'm actually navigating through that right now, per se. Because as we spoke earlier, last year I was gone quite a bit. I flew just under 200,000 miles last year from gig to gig and situation to situation, because I wasn't only with just one band, trying to, juggle different bands and in different cities and things like that, so it was pretty crazy. So I was gone quite a bit last year, and then as of March this year, I haven't been anywhere. So I was navigating the high, in terms of all the traveling and things like that, and maybe not the stardom, but, at least for me, I was quite content, and now home, for the last almost 5 months or whatever, and just kind of wondering, wow, okay, let's see what happens, So it's a day-to-day thing for me, to try and figure out and understand how to navigate this low section right now, and to really try and figure out how long it's going to last, because nobody knows really, I've pretty much already set my mind to, well, there may not be any more live music for us travel wise till next year. So that's going to be, it'll be challenging, but now knowing that I've set my mind that way, I'm trying to plan as well as I can to navigate through that, so I think in general, just trying to just take a step back and see what's happening day to day, whether it's high, whether it's low, or in between. Just kind of see, okay, what do I have to look for this day? All right, there's these things, there's that, there's that, there's tomorrow, there's next week, and things like that. And you have to have a lot of faith in what you're planning, in what you do, with yourself, and that's kind of like a work in progress for me right now.
Yeah. I've seen on Facebook a lot of people have been posting, if you don't come out of this pandemic and you haven't developed a new skill, like what were you really doing anything? And it's like everybody deals with these things differently.
Of course.
Not everybody's going to be able to, now that I'm not working, let me just go ahead and take up another passion. Like that took already a lot of work to develop in the first place. You studied music, now you tour the world, and just to drop that and try to find something else just because. It doesn't work like that.
Right. In my age, it's like, okay, well, if I can't go tour, with music anymore, well, okay, I'll just go get a 9-to-5 job. Really? It's like, I've never done that. I did a 9-to-5 for one day in college. I'm like, that's not for me, So it's like, how am I going to just, change my mindset to wake up every morning at 6 and go to a job and come home and then wait till the next day to do exactly the same thing, and that type of routine. That takes a lot of work in my mind, just as it takes a lot of work for me to get up at 3 a.m. to go to LAX to take a flight at 5:30, and perform that same day, and then have another lobby call at 3 a.m. after your show, and then go to the next venue and do the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah,
that's a whole different mindset too, and that's something that we are trained to do.
Yeah,
but there's going to be a lot of training in general.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
Yeah. While things were busy, how did you go about not burning yourself out?
It was difficult. Because, before I started doing a lot of traveling, I was playing here in town a lot with different bands, because you're doing your hustle. And sometimes I would have 3 gigs a day, 4 gigs a day, especially in the summertime, because, when all the parks would have their festivals, or they'd have those nightly or weekly series, like on Wednesday night or Thursday night or whatever, and every park, every neighborhood had that. So we were lucky enough to play all those things, plus lunchtime concerts and things like that, So that was really challenging, to be, say, showing up to your first gig of the day at 11 in the morning, 10 in the morning. And then right after that, like say that was in downtown LA. And then right after that, you had to be in San Pedro to play an afternoon show. And then right after that, you had to be in La Puente to play an evening show, So for those of us that don't know where those places are, that's a lot of driving in Los Angeles traffic. So, you need to really realize that, okay, well, I have 2 hours to get to from point A to point B. And with the amount of traffic, that could be like 2.5 hours. So you really have to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? And then get to the next gig and be able to play happy and with your mind in the music.
Have the energy for it.
Have the energy, exactly. So that was really challenging there, and then having to do it the following day. So for me, with those experiences, man, resting, get as much rest as possible, man. So you have a clear mind, to be able to navigate through any situation that you're dealing with there. And the same thing with traveling, it's because like we were talking, it's like at 3 a.m. wake up calls, flying, venue. Afterward, another wake up call, flying, venue. That's the same thing. You have to pick your moments where you get enough rest so that, one, you can endure it mindset wise. 2, body wise too. You have to be, as healthy as possible, because that's, if you don't have that, then you can't do any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
That was really the main takeaway from that for me, was like trying to find your places to rest with your moments, within the 24-hour period.
Yeah. Because
when you really break it down from 24 hours, it's like, wow, I only have like 3 hours to sleep here. I only have 1 hour to sleep here. And that when you really realize that, that's a big thing. And unfortunately, there are some people that don't really think of it that way, and they burn out. But if you have a chance to just, and even just write it down on a piece of paper, okay, here's midnight here and here's midnight tomorrow. What am I going to do? And sometimes that gives you a whole different outlook on things. Wow, I didn't realize I do this here and do that. So if you can really determine, where your hours are and things like that, and when it's best to try and relax and just take your mind off things,
Yeah.
because obviously, man, when you're in town and trying to navigate through traffic here in LA, that doesn't take your mind away from anything. That stresses you out a lot, So there were times where I was so stressed out getting to a gig that I'd be on a gig and I just relax. Oh, this is great, and it's like, wait a minute, man, I should be thinking about what's going on in the gig, but playing the music is what was the most relaxing part of the day, and sometimes traveling is that way too.
Yeah.
It's like you have so many things going on that once you get to the show and you're actually playing music, it's like, oh man, this is good,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just being able to identify all of that.
Yeah. Being realistic about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Because you definitely have to be realistic. I mean, there's things that I used to be able to do when I was younger, especially like going on the road and stuff. Like, oh, I don't need to sleep. I'm cool, man. Let's go. And things like that. But now it's like, oh, wait a minute. I don't work quite like that anymore. So it's kind of weird, man. Yeah. But it is what it is, and you just you roll through it, and you identify it and make it work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. The word value. How important do you think that is?
I think it's really important. The thing that I have gone through and I'm going through, you understand, you get called for a job, and 9 times out of 10, it's a job that the person that's calling you about it is the one that's going to be, compensating you for it. So, it's coming out of their pocket, so you have to keep that in mind because, I do have a set rate for certain things, but if the person comes clean with everything, all the details, like, wow, okay, I understand, and if I was in the position that you're in the position of trying to pay me for, my services, well, okay, I understand. So let me give you a little break here because that's valuable for me to be able to help that person, create what they want to create. There are situations where, you want to be strict and you want to stay with your, your pricing and things like that. Excuse me. But, you eventually you learn and you get the vibe from the person right away. Yeah. Or a company or any situation where it's up to you to promote your value to them. Yeah. It's always great if you're able to have some sort of a manager or something like that can do the dirty work for you. It's hard to find somebody like that because if you actually hire a manager, you don't always get a chance to play as much to pay them. So you're paying them more than you're getting paid. But if you have somebody that will stand in your corner and you can call them, hey, can you make this call for me and just make sure that all the details are cool, and then this is what I expect. Cool, that's great. I rarely have that option, so it's always on me. And a lot of times, you are going to get the sob story from almost everybody, as in terms of what they expect from you and what you can expect from them. Yeah. But you're supposed to, in your mind, be able to extract, the good things and the bad things here, good things here, and determine at that point, which is almost split second when you're thinking of all that, to respond in a way to where everything's going to be cool for both of you, because you don't want to give off the vibe like that. I'm too good for that. Cause that's the first thing they think of, I can't help you out because I am, this is what I expect to make for whatever I'm doing, that comes off in a bad way a lot of times, so you want to be able to work with somebody because you don't want to burn the bridge.
Exactly.
The bottom line is that you don't want to burn bridges because you want to keep working.
Yeah.
So if you have to do things for free sometimes, then you do it for free, but use your judgment to be able to decide, okay, no, I need to stay strict with what I need here.
Do you ever come up with like some type of contract or some type of like waiver situation where like you have them sign it so that way things are on paper
I have done that in the past. I haven't done it very often, but when you do pull that out, if and I've it's happened to me. You pull that out, and it's right away. It's offensive to somebody. It's like, wait a minute. Well, what are you insinuating with this?
Yeah,
I'm just covering myself.
Yeah,
but they think of it in a whole different way.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult to do that. And the challenge is to decipher who to do it with and who not to do it with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's not as personable as as like just you and I just having a verbal agreement and sticking to it.
Right.
But if I have that with you and we don't come to that agreement, we have the agreement, but the outcome is not the agreement, then if I work with you again, I will give you that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, cover your base for the next time.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because you don't want to sell yourself short.
Yeah.
Because after all, you've done all this time, of preparing your craft.
Yeah.
And preparing yourself for that, what you're trying to do with that person.
Yeah.
So value is super important. And that and the term value doesn't only go with the monetary.
Of course.
It's value is, how do you value yourself? How do you value everything?
Yeah.
And that could be a podcast on its own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
What do you say to the aspiring musician, people that look up to you, people that respect your work and admire you? What would you tell them?
Keep working hard. Keep working hard, because you have your ultimate goal, and always work toward your goal. No matter what restrictions or obstacles may be in front of you, and there are quite a few nowadays. For any type of situation, any type of career that you really are looking for. I do have students, that want to be bass players in the same situations that I'm in and things like that. And to me, I think it's good to keep going for them, for their situations. Keep going, move forward toward your goal, your ultimate goal, because, as long as there's going to be live music, there's always going to be rhythm sections for singers. There's always going to be rhythm sections for whatever situation. And there always has to be a bass player. Because
sure.
If there's no bass player, there's no bottom, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? I mean, you can always fake it with the keyboard and stuff like that, but
In the words of Megan Trainor, it's all about the bass.
That's right, exactly. So I tell my students, keep going, keep moving forward with things that you want to accomplish. Because there will be a situation, if you search for it, there will be a situation for you to be a part of.
That's good.
On the other hand, I see other musicians, especially the ones that are going to school, conservatories and things like that. Like I see for instance, a saxophone player who's studying classical music and not so much jazz. It's great because they're going to be a phenomenal sax player. But when they graduate, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Career-wise, it's like there's only so many symphonic pieces that have classical saxophone.
Right.
So I try and tell students, think about the outlook, your future, and where do you want to be, in terms of what you're doing now, and you want to prepare yourself for that. Okay, cool. You want to be a classical saxophonist, where are you going to go? Okay, you can teach. That's cool. That's going to be good. So if you want to teach, go for it, and provide other people with your knowledge, which is great, But if you're planning to be a performer, then you really have to think about it twice, and you have to learn other styles of music in order to play, For me, when I was a trombone player, it got me through school, the whole thing, and I was playing gigs, and it was great. It was fun, But not every band needs a trombone player. So another instrument that I always gravitated toward was bass. So every situation that I know that I would want to be involved with, requires a bass.
Yeah.
So that's where I was kind of looking futuristically, to that point. Okay, I want to be a bass player and I want to be able to do these situations. So I prepared myself for that.
Yeah.
And so no matter what it is, if it's a photographer, if you want to go into a certain field, well, go definitely, man, move that move toward that career. You know, move that toward that style of whatever you want to do. Just keep a positive outlook, because there are obstacles. You know, no matter what situation, but just move forward.
Yeah, that's good. Rene, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you for coming out here and doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Episode 24 with Rene Camacho. Thank you so much, man. That was great.
Thank you.
All right. Great.
Cool, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Turn on the air, please.
Welcome back. Thank you for checking out episode 24 with Rene Camacho. Hopefully you enjoyed it. As a reminder, make sure to check out the episode and all other episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Episode 25, la próxima semana, which means next week. Peace.